And we are live, everybody. Welcome to the Post Wrestling Café Hangout.
I am John Pollock, along with Wai Ting, but we did not come alone on this Thursday afternoon. Joining us live in studio, Damian Abraham himself has returned.
I am honored to be back. I've met people all over the world that have asked me when was the next time I was going to see you guys. Like in New Zealand, in Australia, in a bookstore, last week on Bloor Street West. You know, I've met people all over the place asking me about you guys. So to be here in your presence, I'm shook, a little starstruck.
True or false, you were on your way down Queen Street?
I was on Bloor Street West.
On Bloor Street West when a random individual came up to you.
I went to the bookstore where this person worked.
Okay.
And I said random individual who I've never met until this point, or at least I did not think I had met until this point. Maybe I had, and I should feel bad about this, but came up to me and asked me, when is the next time you're going to be seeing John and Wai? And I said, well, actually, funny enough, I'm going to be seeing them next week for a podcast, but I'm actually going to be seeing Wai in about an hour for lunch. And he said, can you please give him this book? And he busted out a book for me to give.
Was this at
Wai.
the BMV?
It was at the BMV.
Was this Mike?
Yeah, it was Mike.
Oh, okay. Now
Yeah.
this all comes together.
How did you even get the story if you didn't know who it was?
Dude, that's my job.
I just thought
Find stuff out.
I got recognized for not for the lifetime commitment to a band that I put in, not for this wrestling TV show that I made. No, I got recognized for being the once in a while, whenever they'll have me, guest of the Post Wrestling Network.
Our coattails are very durable. So
I tell you,
just
I'm riding.
latch on, okay?
I'm riding like it's like a speedboat. I'm just holding on for dear life right now. But it's funny, even in Australia and New Zealand, like I was not lying. I met multiple people that came up to me to talk to me about being on your podcast.
He's straight into the camera. Just repeat that.
These are the guys.
This is for
These are the guys worldwide. You know, people in the chat room right now are listening all over the world. I listen. These people call in like every time there's like a foreign accent on there. I'm like, yep, worldwide.
I'm in a spectacular mood right now. I had some significant internet problems this morning, which I had to convey to Wai Ting because I was immediately worried about this show today.
Oh, we were very close to doing this podcast on John's couch.
Yeah.
At my apartment.
Or moving and setting up at Wai's place, which
Or your house, Damien.
Do you remember we did in the lobby of the building that time? In the back lobby?
Well, we started to do it, and it was very loud there.
That's true. And then we had to go upstairs eventually.
So I tried everything, rebooting my modem, doing all this stuff, and the speed is just horrendous. I call into Rogers, and I draw this individual who is going to just troubleshoot everything with me on my laptop. It was like playing broken telephone as I was explaining what I'm seeing versus what is happening. So he said, well, let's just disable the Wi-Fi adapter. I was like, okay, let's do that. So now I have no internet. It's dead. And when I go to troubleshoot, nothing is happening. And he tells me, well, this is starting to get beyond what I can give you advice on. It's like, so what are you telling me here? He's like, well, I could suggest that you get a network 5G adapter that might be cheaper than getting tech support. It's like, okay, that sounds like an idea that I will not be entertaining. So is this where the call is going to end? He's like, that's the advice I can give you. Best of luck with everything. It's like, I just want to recap that I called you with slow internet. I'm leaving this call with zero internet. He's like, yeah, but you already have a problem with your Wi-Fi adapter. It's like, thank you. Thank you for establishing this problem. It is worse. Have a great day. So I had to go meet you for lunch. I have no internet at this point. Come back. John Pollock was able to get hooked back up to his Wi-Fi adapter. Thank you, Google. And now everything's fine. It's I've got I have updates here from my drivers. The internet speed is there any problems, Wai? Are you experiencing any issues?
We are perfect right now.
I believe it's a laptop specific issue and not because my phone's fine, your internet is fine.
Well, now I know who to go to for my Apple Genius support.
Don't even come near me. I cannot offer anything, but I was really happy that I solved this issue, and now things are fine. So when this whole show crashes in 20 minutes, I'll be in a much worse mood, but now I'm on cloud 9.
I remember, John Pollock mood scale, sale at TNA just before we go live to a podcast being the worst mood I've ever seen you in. And then like having to review a deathmatch show being kind of the medium mood. You were
sorry, sale of TNA. What?
when just before you weren't here that time, but just before John and I did a podcast.
This
one
was the
time.
Spike TV story.
The Spike TV story. Oh, they got kicked off the network. That was it. They got kicked off.
The
the
story
network.
broke on a Sunday night, and you were coming to record with me Monday around noon.
Yeah.
Something like that. Not the most ideal time.
No, I could see John writing the story as he looked in my eyes, like he's like just like looking in my eyes, like
Damian, I love you, but I do not want to be doing this show.
does not
right
want
now.
to be doing the show. I would say that the mood, even though we cheered up during lunch, was kind of like closer to like, made you watch a death match kind of vibe. But now, seeing John beat a computer problem, one of the greatest moods I've ever seen you in my entire life.
Now seeing the three faces of Pollock.
You beat a Dell problem, like you beat the Dell, and then it's like so many times I listen to the show and the Dell bests you, but finally you kicked that ball from Lucy. You got that. I was so stoked when you fixed it. I was like, God damn it!
It's going to be a good show.
It's going to be a good show.
How was lunch?
Amazing. That restaurant is incredible. Wade, thank you for the
Location
recommendation.
was a 10 out of 10 because it took me 30 seconds to walk to.
Yep.
The food was fantastic. What did we get? We got the
cow soy.
cow soy.
Oh, my favorite.
Yeah.
Get the cow soy. He got it with tofu. I went wild. I got it with the chicken. This thing was fantastic. It was excellent. They make it instantly for you.
Yeah.
It's a couple minutes wait.
Yeah. And I was saying, like
Very affordable too. This thing was
Very.
$11.
Okay, forget the food. I want to know about your interaction. I want to know about what you guys talked about.
We met.
We met.
Hug.
We did the hug hello. I got the
Yep.
ultimate thrill ride right away.
Damian's
And
a
then we
hugger.
got the curveball when all of a sudden we're walking in and Damian's like, yeah, that guy at the counter, that's my brother. It's like, oh,
kidding
Pull
me.
the cameo off.
yeah. Can I name drop here?
Yeah, totally.
I got to meet the elusive Tristan Abraham.
Yep.
Unplanned?
Unplanned. Like it was just like
So your
hey.
brother works in the area.
He works in the area and he was going to go get sandwiches. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm going to this amazing Thai spot, meeting up with my friend John. And he's like, oh, changed my mind. I'm going for Thai. And then I see John as I'm like standing up front. I'm like, my brother's the guy that just walked in. And he was like, oh, wow. So I got to make the introduction.
I think Damian knows everybody or is related to everybody in the city.
If you saw
I
these
have
two
one
together,
brother. There's not a lot of people I'm related to.
you would never assume these two are related.
No,
You two could not look more different.
But get this, John like made my ego inflate 2 sizes bigger when he was like, so is he your older brother or younger brother? I was like, God damn, John, thank you, buddy.
What is the age difference? How much older are you?
I'm 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
or
the
2
ballpark. Oh, Jesus.
It's okay. It's just my phone, but
Okay.
it's Survivor. No, I think 3 years or 2 years, depending on the time of year.
3 years or 2 years? Okay, right. Okay, so I understand. It's
Yeah.
kind of similar to me and my brother at some times of the year. I'm 2 years older and
Yeah.
sometimes 1.
Yeah, and we're pretty close, and have been close for a long time and stuff. He produces my podcast, so I'm very happy to get to finally introduce him to you, John.
When's he going to be a guest on your show?
He has 2 versions of his episode recorded, and both he refuses to let me air. So they are
Really?
locked in the vault. Yeah, I've made him. I made him do one, and then he was like, "No, can't put it up. Let's do a second version of it." We did a second version of it, and he's also put the kibosh on putting it up. And because he produces the show for free, who am I to say, "Screw you, I'm putting it up"?
I
anyway.
wonder what do these podcasts go deep?
I don't think so. I just think he doesn't feel he does our story justice. I think he carries a lot of burden because he feels he's got to tell my story through telling his story too.
Wow.
So, but yeah, we have recorded some. I had my parents on. It was I'm waiting for that.
Man.
That's one gimmick you guys have not explored yet.
The parents.
The parents.
I'm waiting for Max to make his on-air debut. At
Max
some point.
could definitely what you should
I mean,
do?
he's been heard in the background, I think.
You should maybe
plenty
do
of
the Saturday Morning Slam. Find the run of Saturday Morning Slam.
Oh no, death matches.
Exactly.
Big
Start
Japan.
His entire world in terms of entertainment consists of the movie Coco.
Oh yeah.
He watches this movie. He's had to have watched it 30 times in the last month. That's the only thing he ever wants to watch. And when the movie ends, it's more Coco, Coco. And he'll just I could literally play this movie all day long and he would watch it all day long. He just have to turn the TV off because he would just watch this over and over. When we have dinner, he wants the soundtrack for Coco on. He loves this movie. I've never seen such an attachment to a movie. I have never sat down and watched this movie, but I have just through bits and pieces, I can put this whole movie together in narrative form.
You ever watched it?
I've never watched it.
It's a fantastic. Have you watched it?
No.
Well, neither of you guys seen it?
This movie was a monster.
It's a good movie.
It
It's
is.
a great film. Like,
Very sad.
be grateful. It could be way worse. It could be Trolls, or like something really obnoxious, like the Smurfs movie. You know, like at least good music.
So your oldest is how old right now?
Holden's 10.
And he's starting to get into wrestling?
He's always been kind of a fan of wrestling, like, you know, like always in the sense of like since I showed it to him. It's just, you know, finding product engagement's been difficult. But, you know, AEW I think is a little more, you know, it's something a little more that he's kind of into, like the action's fast paced. I think that's what he wants to see. And also, you know, he knows some of these guys, especially because, like, you know, a couple of the guys were on the TV show, and so he knew, you know, from seeing them around when we were doing the TV show. So I think, you know, AEW seems to be the one he's responding to the most so far. But he's the only one out of all his friends. Like, I think that's, to me, the most kind of frightening thing about the industry right now is that, you know, people are talking about, like, the numbers in these shows are still doing, you know, they're doing great numbers, higher than expectations, but you don't see a lot of little kids getting into it. And you kind of need little kids to be the next generation hardcore fan base.
Who is best equipped to capture that audience?
I don't know. Like, I really wonder, like, I talked about this with Wai a couple weeks ago when we hung out, or a week ago when we hung out. Just, it seems like no one's really, you know, I love AEW, but it kind of reminds me of WCW, but I'm also like an old man, you know, like it doesn't engage my kids in the way that YouTube content engages them, and the way that, you know, the Flash TV show engages them. Like, it just feels like there's got to be a new way of presenting this product for this younger generation. That's just like,
yeah, and it's such an overarching subject. Like, what is going to capture a young audience? I don't feel I'm equipped to know what's going to connect with a 8 or 9 year old. Like, we look at things in such a simplistic way that, you know, certain characters, these are kid friendly. Like, when I was in my teens and, you know, 13, 14 years old, like, the hot thing was DX, which is not aimed at kids, but was popular with kids.
Yep.
And I don't say that would necessarily work today, but I think sometimes we just look at, you know, it's just such a wide brush you're trying to cast to grab a fan just through one act. It's going to be, I don't know, you would really have to tune into that specific audience and see specifically what appeals to them. And wrestling might not be something that they're watching in large numbers.
yeah, like, and I think they, like, when they watch the in-ring product, like, what's not to love? It's like watching an action movie, you know, like, especially now, like the stuff that people are doing, but it's getting them to sit down and pay attention to it, to focus on what's happening enough in the ring. Like, I think that's the thing. And I was wondering if Lucha Underground maybe missed the mark by trying to go adult. Like, maybe if it was something that was aimed at young kids, like, that's something, maybe it has to be more fantastical to get this new generation of kids in there. Yeah.
I'm trying to think what the closest thing to professional wrestling may be that might be popular with children. Now, I'm not the person to ask either. You might be more equipped to answer this.
Probably YouTube in general. Like, all these people are kayfabing it, you know, like when you watch a YouTuber, they're presenting you, you know, like this
but that's strictly personality. Is there something that's, you know, sort of a pseudo sport, maybe even a sport itself that is that popular with children that's very personality based as well?
I don't know, like maybe it's Twitch kind of gaming, you know, like that seems to be like where
esports,
like,
you mean?
Yeah, what kids like it's funny, Holden loves up down down. You know, like that to him is like, you know, he watches that probably more religiously than he watches any consistent wrestling program, you know, and it's just like
I look at AEW and I think that they have certainly the ability through a Kenny Omega with, you know, the what you just outlined there with the Young Bucks, with, you know, a Luchasaurus. Like, it does seem like they have a lot of diverse characters that could cross over numerous demographics. And I've always thought that the best kind of theory is you don't just like narrow in on one specific audience. You just try and, you know, present the best product possible, and hopefully that will trickle to numerous demographics rather than just saying this is who we're aiming for and narrowing it.
I wonder if that's going to work though now, because like that definitely worked in the 80s and like the rock and wrestling era, because that was when you still had people gathered around the TV and everyone watched, and even before that, like, you know, wrestling on television history, you had people gathered around the TV together to consume it. World of Sport in the UK, you know, great. You hear stories about grandmothers with their grandkids showing them World of Sport wrestling, like, you know. But now, entertainment is so individualized. Like, I wake up in the morning, my youngest is on an iPad, my eldest is playing Switch, and my middle child is watching something on Netflix. You know, like, it is so personal what you're into. Yeah, like,
it's not communal.
It's not communal anymore. And so I wonder if a wrestling product trying to serve all these different audiences is ever going to be successful, because what entertains me isn't what entertains them. Like, you know, we watch stuff together because I want to be engaged by what they're engaged with, but what actually, you know, so a wrestling product that's trying to, you know, impress people like yourselves and myself, you know, like a couple years older than you guys, is not going to be what impresses, like, you know, Holden, my eldest, or you know, even kids like Max, you know, like the super young kids who are also engaged by media now, like watching Coco a million times.
Are there certain things though where you do feel like everybody is drawn together? And I'm thinking about, you know,
Total Divas with your dad.
The Total Divas with my dad. Yeah, I shuddered.
Seriously, every time you bring up Total Divas, you're watching it with someone.
I am, yeah.
You say you watch it with your girlfriend?
But I mean, that person doesn't. Those people aren't watching Raw or SmackDown. They have very little interest in those.
But the point being, like, there is a product that is a few degrees away from your wrestling product, but is considered WWE content that is at least reaching someone like your girlfriend that would never watch anything else.
I don't know if she would watch if I wasn't watching it, personally. But I mean, I think the fact that it's existed for this long, and I don't think we've really seen a spillover from like an E audience to a WWE audience necessarily, suggests that it's more of a fan of like the Kardashians or E itself that's watching those shows because they are in that style, rather than, you know, people that might be interested in wrestling.
And the benefit maybe is the specific performers on Total Divas versus a jumping on point that, oh, I want to see WWE as a result of this.
Yeah. But I'm thinking about, you know, like big sporting events, like, I mean, the Olympics, or like, you know, recently the Raptors bring a lot of people together. I'm sure your kids were maybe watching a little bit of that.
Yep, definitely.
Should wrestling be kind of maybe modeling itself more towards that?
Yeah, and I think that's like the, you know, like it's funny, we in kind of like this sort of North American version of entertainment capitalism, you know, the idea is to just dominate the industry. You know, you want to be the biggest wrestling company imaginable. But then you look at Japan, and it's like you got companies that are like, well, let's just maximize our audience. Let's just be hyper focused on this group of people and what they're into and what their interests are. And I think, like, you know, that's kind of where it's going. Like, you obviously have things like the Raptors win, but that's just like mass hysteria. Like, I think people watching, you know, wrestling with you, or watching Total Divas with you, it's because to them, I think it's a kick that they're able to watch something that's not wrestling, but it still somehow intersects with something that you're really excited about. And you know, like, I wonder if wrestling, if it's now more a case of, you know, let's just hyper focus on this audience. Like, let's not try and get everyone, because you can't get everyone anymore. Let's just be the best company we can be for this group of people here. And, you know, and maybe that's what WWE is doing right now. Like, did you guys go into the SmackDown rating? I haven't heard what the SmackDown rating was during the NXT takeover. Did it go down? Like,
it went up.
It went up. It was up. Yeah.
So was it up big time, or like or not?
It was up. Well, you throw out the FS1 number from 2 weeks prior. It was up. The final number,
like 100.
It was about 100,000, give or take.
It's kind of funny because, like, you know, I interviewed you know, plug for my podcast at this point, David Starr.
Smooth.
Just integrating it completely seamlessly there. And he was saying that to him is a sign of undercutting labor, because it showed that that labor's replaceable. You know, they can just, like, if one roster's sick of it and, you know, just refuse to do something, they can just replace them with another roster, you know, and this whole thing of, like, no one being bigger than the company. Like, that's been that thing that we've kind of heard, you know, slipping out for years about the kind of, like, ethos of things in this present day. That also serves the fact that everyone's replaceable now, and you can always just, like, stick in a new group of wrestlers that's just the audience is going to tune in no matter what. Like, their product is kind of set in stone. The audience is kind of set in stone.
I think that there's certainly a degree to that, and WWE has greatly insulated themselves with such a deep, like, they've never had more performers under contract than they do now. And I think it only strengthens the argument that you could never envision this entire roster getting onto the same page where they could systemically create a change and more leverage for themselves. So that's certainly something to the WWE's favor. I think that certainly Friday benefited greatly as well from the unknown, from what was this show going to be. Would like a wholesale roster change, I think they'd still do very respectable numbers. I don't think it's a real threat that the WWE has of this generation being able to push through anything, and look at the ability that the WWE has been able to do to negotiate these TV deals that they don't have to cut into revenue sharing with a players association. They don't have to be able to sit down at a negotiating table to go through practices with their talent. I mean, they have been able, much like the UFC has been able to do, they are able to pretty much direct their company with autonomy, and you have the talent that is just happy to be there, and also knowing in the back of my mind that if I step out in line, I will be the outlier. I will not be with the majority and can be replaced.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's kind of amazing how here's this company on the brink of disaster. You're reading about it on the afternoon, and that was the one play. I don't know, maybe people saw that coming, but I can't believe I just didn't think of, they're just going to bring up everyone from NXT. And then it's like, how would they replenish NXT? Well, they could just bring up everyone from Evolve. Like, it's like almost like they've insulated themselves where they have these incredibly stacked rosters. Like, they've got basically 4 access to, not in Progress too, so NXT UK too, and that whole world. They've got all these like huge, like stacked rosters all over the world now, where they can just kind of like you're saying, like everyone, like there's no Hogan, there's no Rock and Austin. Like, people keep saying, oh, who's going to be the next Cena? No one. It's now just going to be a whole roster of people that are kind of just below that in popularity.
But at the same time, with the rise of an alternative company and alternative companies, it does give more power for somebody who, if they, for whatever reason, they're not happy with working with this particular company, gives them the option to help build the other thing, so that maybe the other thing becomes sort of the another main pillar in the whole industry.
Yeah, like it's been an interesting week. Obviously, the stuff with Ring of Honor, I guess, like that's one player who's kind of like position in the game's kind of changed big time this week. But otherwise, like, you've got Impact putting out great products. You've got NWA putting out an interesting product that's doing something different. And then you've got New Japan launching the American division. You've got, an incredibly healthy UK independent scene. There's just like a lot of opportunities. You're right. Like, you don't have to, you can still just take your ball and go to a different field. Like, you don't have to go home anymore. You can go to a different place and play, if they let you. Like, it's interesting to see like how they're going to handle this ACH thing. Like, I saw the other day, or what's his name in WWE again?
Jordan Miles.
Jordan Miles. Sorry.
Yeah.
One of the coolest people I ever met in wrestling. One of the nicest people I ever met in wrestling. And I saw the other day, he's like, I'm giving the company a deadline to respond to me. And I don't know if they've met his deadline to respond to him yet, but I think he's still just waiting.
I haven't heard much other response.
No.
No, they're in a situation where I don't think the WWE is in a position where they could fire the guy. I think that the optics of that would be terrible. That it may just simply be, however they are, waiting this scenario out and figuring out what they'll do with him next. But it's a very difficult situation to imagine him just coming back to television and resuming his career without, just because he has been so vocal about it.
Yeah.
A lot of topics we want to get to. We might chat a bit about last night's shows if anybody wants to talk about those. But maybe what else is going on. Have you had a chance to check out NWA Power ratings coming out later? But we probably want to get to some phone calls at this point. So Skype us, search for Post Wrestling, or call us 1-732-800-4423. Long distance charges may apply. Get your chance to talk to the two of us as well as Damian
What did you
Abraham.
think about NXT last night? From what you've gotten to see.
really liked it. I thought it was the integration with the OC. I thought was really smart, considering that like they could have went with anybody on that main roster, and I think they chose individuals that number one hadn't been in NXT in the past, so they obviously in character don't have much loyalty, and secondly, I mean the context is that you are seeing the Bullet Club invade NXT, and that of course very much appeals to that same audience that's watching NXT. So I love the way that all that turned out. I was not enamored with the lack of finish in the main event. I thought that was sort of weak. But the Finn Balor tease, again, playing right up directly the Bullet Club references, I think all of that was very smart. It felt like a really hot show.
Yeah, you built the whole show around getting to see them wrestle at the end by introducing them first. So I thought that was a good hook. I think you could have tried to direct people more to NXT rather than you tune in and find out they're there, because that's, to me, what was the value of them. And
I'm guessing they were relying a lot on buzz, getting you to switch over the channels. I don't know when the plan was to get the OC over to NXT. I tend to agree with you. I think it would have been most beneficial to get that Raw audience aware that something was going to take place on this Wednesday show, rather than having people that were probably going to tune in Wednesday anyway find out.
Yeah.
So is this all born out of them not being able to get the wrestlers out of Saudi Arabia? Like this whole thing.
No, they were going to do this anyway.
This was already a
well.
plan
I
in
mean, it might have
motion?
been sped up, but Survivor Series was always going to.
This was going to be
it's going to be a three-way.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just wild how invested it is this quickly in it. But I guess this was the play all along. It worked out in their favor.
and next week they're going to be on, well, the UK tour. It kicks off this week, and they're doing a double taping on Friday. So they're going to do SmackDown, followed by taping Raw. So Raw is going to be taped Friday for Monday's broadcast.
Crazy.
That is a marathon if you're going there live for 5 hours of TV.
Oh, yeah.
With them being in the UK, do you think we see any NXT UK integration? Perhaps
You could do. Yeah, it's
depends if they're going to have a role in the pay-per-view.
yeah, which is I could see them maybe having some involvement, but I think you want to keep it NXT proper because you want to be building to who's going to be present at the pay-per-view, and NXT UK is kind of separate from that.
Let's get to some
go
of
to
these
calls.
phone calls. We have a lot of people who want to talk to Damian, so if we can ask all of our callers to keep it a little bit briefer than usual. And we start off with our man Neil. Neil, what's going on?
Hey guys, hey John and Wai, and hello Damian.
Hey Neil, how's it going?
I'm doing really well. Neil from Northern Ireland. I don't think I know we haven't spoken before, Damian.
No, but I've heard your voice a lot, Neil.
Oh God, right. Maybe I call a bit too often. But I'm one of those guys who did go to my grand's every Saturday afternoon, and we would sit and watch World of Sport. So that's an interesting reference that you threw up there. I thought that's a it feels like a very UK/Irish kind of experience. And God, I remember being a little kid, and when Dave Finlay came on, going mad because he was from Belfast. It was wonderful. And yeah, I don't know how you get to a product that can just bring in everyone in that way. But I really phoned just to say, Damien, I'm a big fan. I love the wrestlers.
Oh, thank you.
And I listened to you on the Jimmy Jacobs Doesn't Know podcast very recently there. I thought you came across brilliantly on that. You're a fascinating guy, and I am a admirer. And
His head is just getting way too big, Neil. So
don't worry, Neil. Go on. Don't let John interrupt you, please. Let me try and mute him here.
I love John and Wai is just as much though, but they know that.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say that's a very interesting podcast. I think the Jimmy Jacobs one, and you've done each other's podcast now, I believe, and if you could have a word with your new friend Jimmy and get either John or Wai or both onto that would be excellent, because he gets very deep, and I'd be very interested to hear what these guys take is on determinism and synchronicity and all of that.
I wonder, have you guys ever been interviewed together in a podcast format, like deep dive interview style? Because I've heard you guys both interviewed separately.
We recently did an interview with Toronto Mic'd, which is a local podcast talking to a lot of broadcast professionals. And actually, this Sunday, I don't even know if we.
Are we supposed to talk about this?
Well, we're gonna do Alan Cross's podcast talking about just like podcasting in wrestling podcasting specifically. So
very cool. Look at that, the ongoing history of John and Wai.
Yeah. This is the Beats and Geeks podcast he does.
I know, but I'm just putting into the pop cultural universe.
Well, let's just get the correct titling.
Oh, do you remember that? I was like,
Neil, you got a question, or was that it?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Neil.
you, Neil. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Shout out to the Undertones.
Yay! Yes, and stiff little figures.
Absolutely.
Oh. Okay.
Oops. Okay, thank you.
Oh, Wai just hung up on our next
So
caller,
I was just
call
going
back.
to start the Outcast, and we're just going to keep going back and forth with different bands for like an hour.
So we also, as we continue to take calls on this particular show, when is the David Starr interview going to be airing?
I think I'm going to put it up real soon. Like, I don't really. The problem is, I'm like now sitting on a bunch of, like, as you know, Neil brought up, Jimmy Jacobs. I'm like sitting on a bunch of different episodes. That Jim Smallman, a really cool one with Jim Smallman. Now, I just like I enjoy. It's funny because my brother, who produces the show, the aforementioned brother, hates when I have people from wrestling on. He's like, "Did you talk about Punk at all?" And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe like 10 of the 3 hours of this podcast, or 10 minutes of this 3-hour podcast are spent talking about that." So
We got somebody back on the line. Hansi, you're on the line with Damian Abraham.
yes, the world famous Hansi. How's it going, man?
How's it going, Damien? It was cool meeting you this summer, bro.
100%. Well, you're over with all my friends. Everyone I know, I'm like, who you know, fan of podcasts and radio and the Stern Show. I bring up your name, and they're like, "Oh my God, you know him?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do. I met him in person, no less."
Yeah, I felt bad because when I told Wayne and John, right? Normally I would expect that we would meet at a post wrestling event, but we met at an event that wasn't post wrestling, and then John and Wayne were like, "What the fuck, man?
No, don't bring it up.
Thought you guys were loyal.
No,
Yeah.
they hate me. They hate me. Look at the shooting daggers at me right now. I like.
It was busted open, everybody.
Yes.
It was busted open.
Yeah, you gotta.
You were busted open.
I was busted. Hansi, you busted me.
No, I'm sorry. No, I'll just be quick, but I just wanted to say that yesterday's promo with Cody Rhodes, man, like I saw that, man, and I thought people were. I didn't watch it live, right? And I thought people were exaggerating, like, oh, this is like one of the greatest promos ever, because you know how we live in the hype beast era of stuff, whatever. But I saw the promo, man, and I gotta say, like, when his voice cracked, I actually kind of teared up, man. Like, I go, yo, this. I wasn't sure if I was gonna order the pay-per-view this weekend, but after that promo, like, it really did a good job. And it's to my point that when people say that, oh, you can't be a good guy and be kind of cool or be passionate, right? Like, that promo right there shows you that, like, if like a heel is being ignorant or racist or homophobic or transphobic or whatever, there's ways that you can take a passionate promo and you know, basically like the way that Cody basically like he basically just disarmed Jericho's whole millennial argument that you always hear from all these Generation Xers and Boomers, right? So I just thought it was a really, really good promo, and I'm looking forward to this. And and when you guys, I heard your review first before I watched it. So because of you guys like that, I like, okay, I gotta listen to this promo because it was really, really good. But I just wanted to say that. And Damien, all the success to you, bro. I'll try to listen to your podcast. I've seen one episode of The Wrestlers, and I'll try to keep tabs. I felt bad when you said, I know you didn't mean it as an insult, but you said, I probably listen to you more than you listen to me. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So I felt really bad about that, right? So I'll try to listen to more of your shit, bro. And I'm a big fan and I'm glad the post-wrestling guys, Wayne and John, introduced me to you because you're literally one of the coolest dudes on the planet.
Oh, dude, I appreciate it. These guys are...
I didn't know this was turning into This Is Your Life for Damian Abraham and its growing ego here.
Guys, I'm just here to take it all in, you know? I'm just here to be high on edibles and...
As long as everyone
hang out.
acknowledges what great contributors Wai and I have been to the world at large by introducing Damian Abraham to our masses, even though I think on a worldwide level, Damian is quite above us.
No, oh my God. I was just saying, like, all over the world, I meet people that know you guys. And it's... I met Chris through you guys. Like, there's just so much. I wouldn't be doing... I said it on the other day on Twitter. I wouldn't be doing the Wrestlers. I wouldn't have done the Wrestlers without you guys. Like, if I hadn't met you guys, there's no way I would have pursued kind of that world in any sort of real serious way. So, yeah, no, 100%.
We go back to the phone lines. And Corey, you're on with Post Wrestling and Damian Abraham. What's up? Corey, are you there?
Hello?
Hey, Corey, you're on the air.
Oh, hey, it's not Corey. It's Vish from Victoria.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Whoops.
Hey, no worries, guys. No, a big fan. Actually been listening to a lot since like Big Daddy Donnie days.
Wow.
Yeah, no,
Me too.
and yeah, right on. And and yeah, one of the first 100 Patreons back in the day too.
Oh, thank you so
But
much.
anyway,
I like that our start now is back in the day. So
Back in the
that
day.
tells me
Back in the day,
we've been
Back
around for a
in
minute.
December 2017.
Boxing Day, yeah, I remember. Anyway, no, two quick things. First, regarding the status of new viewers for wrestling, I think we're at a time now. Like, I'm in my 40s too, and it's at a point where it almost seems like you've got that core audience, but like you guys were saying, trying to get new audience for a wrestling product in this day and age. Like, for example, my sister, her kid, she wouldn't want them watching wrestling because of the whole, this PC culture now, and having an entity where the whole idea is, say, backstage you're assaulting people with no repercussions and ridiculous things like that. It's kind of hard to convince parents in this day and age to get their kids to even watch this even before they're in their teens. And like John was saying,
I hope they weren't watching this, Russo, honestly.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, I'm embarrassed. Like, as a parent, like, how am I going to
Yeah.
explain this to the kids? Like, it's awkward to watch. Like, it definitely, like, it doesn't make it easy as a parent to bring your child into watching pro wrestling. And it certainly doesn't help my argument with my wife, who's much the same way as you're describing, who's like, I don't know if I want the kids watching wrestling. And I'm like, no, it's not like you remember from the Attitude Era. And then it's worse.
exactly. Well, and then you look at things like Jericho's promo yesterday on AEW, and that tongue-in-cheek sort of comedy build that they did I think was amazing. Like, it was a good little.
Did you get to see that,
compilation.
Damian?
No, I still haven't seen that.
The
but-
Jericho video. This thing was so fantastic. It was funny.
You got to watch the Cody one before it, though.
I've watched the Cody one,
Oh,
actually.
you
'cause
have.
that-
Yeah,
that
you
got-
need to watch that one. It'll set up some of the jokes in the second one. But I heard from one person that, like, there was no writing in this segment. It was the guys were just told, put over Jericho, and then it was masterfully edited.
Yeah.
Like, you could see, like, they did a really good job with that. The beats in that thing, like, you had several laugh out loud funny moments in there. You had the cameo with Virgil, Soul Train Jones. It was just, like, to me, like, that to me was just like a video that, yes, you need to understand some of the context, but that could have fit in just a non-wrestling setting as well. Like, just the actual structure of it and how funny that came off.
Did any of you
Absolutely.
Sorry.
What?
Sorry.
No,
Bish,
no.
please.
I was just gonna say that yeah, absolutely. It's still built up to the match. It still added that little bit of comedy into it. And Jericho, again, showing why they paid that guy so much to have a place on that roster. My second question, just to make it brief, and I'll get off the air. I don't know if you guys heard that there was a lot of like, I'm from Victoria now, but I was born in Winnipeg, so I'm a huge Jericho Omega fan, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But with Jericho taking the time to interview Donald Trump Jr. and give some credence to his book that obviously a lot of non-Trump supporters are not going to like in this day and age, and with the kind of blowback that you get on Twitter, do you think this is going to hurt Jericho, AEW in general? And thanks for the time, guys. I'll get off the call.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Bish.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, so Jericho did an interview with Donald Trump Jr., who's on his book tour this week. So it's drawn a lot of criticism that he would have him on. In principle, I mean, I look at it that it's certainly, you are giving space and a platform to somebody that a lot of people heavily disagree with. I mean, fundamentally, I don't know how I feel about the idea that you just that it just disqualifies anyone from interviewing somebody. But I think that it also you don't want it to just come across as like an exercise in PR for selling a book that is certainly it is designed to rattle people and to just push buttons. And this is a very serious time in our society at the moment where it's very divided and having to look at what are you shining a light on.
Yeah, it was a weird move I did not see coming. I think largely wrestling kind of stays out of kind of like, I think wrestlers, I should say, not wrestling, but wrestlers seem to try and stay out of politics in any sort of overt way. I remember The Rock showing up at the Republican convention years ago and it being kind of surprising. And like, you hear things about people's political alignments, but it just seemed like, especially this
like, let's not get away from like the fact like this podcast interview. Do I think it's going to have any impact on AEW? No. I just watched the president and Donald Trump Jr. attend the UFC event over the weekend. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's like, yeah, there was a lot of criticism about that, But at the end of the day, people are going to be they wanted to tune into this card. They knew ahead of time the president is going to be there. And I don't think it's going to separate people from, supporting the wrestling company that they want to, and also looking at the fact that I guess it's certainly there's going to be a significant amount of people that don't want Chris Jericho to give a platform to Donald Trump Jr. I don't look at Chris Jericho to me as the person that I am looking at necessarily for my politics either. So I don't know. Do you in principle, like Damian, what would you do in this situation that you're presented with a guest that you fundamentally disagree with? Do you just strictly say, I'm not interviewing that person, that I'm not interviewing them?
It's hard to do that because you're talking about someone who has actual real power. Like, it's one thing to not talk, to talk someone who has ideologically something that doesn't align with what you believe ideologically. It's another thing to be talking about someone who has actual power within such a controversial administration. Like, it just seems like such a, especially at this point in the administration, as it seems like from at least an outside, Canadian perspective, it's kind of, the final days seem to be kind of approaching in one form or another. It just seems like a weird move for someone to do that. And I think a lot of AEW fans, are at least in the Twitter sphere or in the online community, do fashion themselves as political and do kind of view, or did kind of hope AEW was going to be, a step away from WWE's alignment with the Trump administration and things like that. Like,
it's a strange area that, these hosts find themselves in. And I do feel like if you're in that kind of a position and with that level of audience, there is a responsibility on your behalf to come into this with facts, not allow this to just be, again, a PR exercise. And I think that extends, it's like at this point, we talked about this before we went on the air, like with Joe Rogan, who has received a lot of this criticism about some of his guest choices. It's the idea that you are the most successful, most listened to podcast in the world, and you can just say, I'm just a comedian. I don't think that cuts it. Like, there is a lot of responsibility because you are broadcasting to a lot of people. That said, I also feel that there is a responsibility on those listening, that you have to understand that Donald Trump Jr. is on here, or a guest on Joe Rogan's show. They are on there to promote themselves, to push their ideologies, and you have to be able to understand and do your own research as opposed to just taking everything in whole and just accepting. So it's a complex measure, but you can, there's the divide of do we just simply say, no, I will not even interview you? Or do you look at the fact that, okay, this is somebody that is obviously a very important person that you can discuss, that you can confront as well in an interview.
Yeah, I don't know, if maybe I'd have a different opinion if it turns out that Donald Trump Jr. played in some raging New York hardcore band back in the day that no one knew about. But
if you were presented with a prominent musician that has a very troubling past or something, just something that you fundamentally disagree with that person as a human being, that's ultimately a case by case basis you would have to make. Like, if I was presented with an interview with someone in wrestling that, I don't even know necessarily what the example would be. But I don't know if my just automatic reaction would be, no, I will not talk to that person. Maybe it would be. Maybe I'm sure there would be cases of ones I would not want to entertain and talk to.
It's also it's because podcast hosts aren't journalists, and I think that's
the gray area that they fall in. And should they be viewed as such?
Yeah, and there is a camaraderie in a podcast. So when you have a guest on your podcast, you're kind of saying this person's cool, this person I'm having on my podcast, I'm cool with them. Depends on your podcast. I guess it depends on your podcast, but in that style of podcast, at least in the Jericho show, sure, he's generally having on people, maybe the flat earth.
And let's say the show isn't out yet. No one's heard the interview yet. Yeah. So it's
maybe he calls him on it. Maybe it's just a super scathing political interview where he's let's talk about family separations as the first question. I don't think it is, but maybe.
We go back to the phone lines. Corey, you are on. What's up?
Hey guys, first time calling in. I love the shows and stuff. Damian, the wrestler, was great, man.
Thank you.
I was at the AEW Dynamite last night. The promo from Cody was unbelievable. The feeling there in the stadium and crowd. That's the hottest show I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot of shows, some WWE pay-per-views and ROH stuff and everything. It's the best thing I've ever been to, honestly.
Were there any kind of like particulars about maybe things that we didn't see on TV, whether it be during commercial breaks or before and after, that you wanted to get into?
Well, Arn Anderson came out for the first Dark match, and he's going to do commentary for that match, which was the one that was
Cool.
it was Big Swole versus Hikaru Shida.
Okay.
So
They've been
that was pretty neat.
They've been like having guest color
Yeah,
commentators.
they did
every single
MJF
week.
this week.
MJF was
Taz recently.
fantastic this
Yeah.
past week.
Who-
is
was it
so
him and
damn good.
Excalibur?
Yes. But you know, I mean, I kind of it's part of the draw of Dark actually, just to see how people do. So I'm actually curious to see how Arn does. Anything else?
Also, like the Lucha Bros came out before that as well. It seemed like they were going up there to do
Spanish
like
commentary?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but other than that, I don't think there was too much that wasn't in the show. Just the crowd was that's the best. Like I said, best crowd I've ever been to for a show. So
How full was the arena, would you say?
the non-film side, the whole upper half of it was taped off, so it was pretty. They were definitely not sold out.
Yeah.
Right. No, it came
The
across
smallest-
great on television. It sounded strong.
Yeah, I think like I said, the crowd, we were hot, so it was great.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for the
But, yeah,
call.
thank
We
you, guys.
appreciate the live report.
Thank you, Corey.
Yes,
Are
sir.
you going to be watching the pay-per-view on Saturday, Damian?
I want to watch it. Like, the problem is, like, once again, it's like finding friends to watch it with me. Like, I don't know.
Man.
Can I watch it with you guys?
You could come over and watch it here.
Okay, I'll definitely.
Actually, Braden and Davey asked as well. So,
They did ask?
yeah.
They didn't ask me.
Well, they asked me. But
Oh, okay.
Wow, full house now. Getting
man.
bumped.
It'll be a
Maybe I can
party.
charge admission.
Yeah, exactly. We'll go in on the pay-per-view. We'll throw
You
some
can
bucks.
come over. We'll make room.
We'll throw bucks for
We'll
pizza
get a pizza.
and stuff. That would be awesome.
If you want to come over, you could come
Yeah,
over.
I love that because like it's one thing like to watch it by yourself, but at that point you're like, I'll just watch it later. You watch it live, you watch it with a group of people. I think that's the one thing I'm always going to wonder about AEW is why they didn't start running. I know obviously the demand in the very beginning was so immense, but like why they didn't run smaller venues off the bat where you could constantly fill them up, constantly sell them out.
Because they were running big events and they were filling those up.
Yeah, but I mean
So-
even just in general, like like the thing in music is like
Build up.
just build up always. Like
But
keep it
l-
high.
like let's
They
look at
under-
last night's. Like, okay, they didn't fill that building. Let's say it was 65% full. Sounded incredible on TV.
Yeah, it looked
and-
incredible.
And then would you rather have, let's say, 5,000 people in an 8,000 seat venue versus filling a 2,000 seater?
I think I'd rather fill the 2,000 seater.
Really?
I'd rather play to the 2,000 seater. Like I'm gonna look. I don't know what it's like as a wrestler. I've actually never asked wrestlers if they do this, but like as a musician, I look at every empty seat. I look at the empty space on that stage. Like it's what I'll see.
But
like
if you had cameras there, does that make a difference?
I guess like I don't know, but I'm not performing to the cameras ever, so it's different,
also
I guess.
I think we're starting to see maybe the initial hype of AEW Dynamite start to taper, and
Yeah.
maybe these shows aren't going to be selling out like as quickly as the earlier ones were. But the earlier ones were selling out.
They were selling out like crazy, but
so
I mean
they were definitely undershooting themselves, like when they were booking even something like a 10,000 seater.
yeah, exactly.
know?
But like it's like because Nike sell it like crazy, they don't start making necessarily a ton more of these rare ones. Like you got to keep it. You got to keep that audience high, like whatever it takes. And I don't know. I just worry that as it dies down, it's going to become less and less of a
Maybe at this
must-buy ticket.
You're right. Yeah, maybe at this point they will start looking at smaller places.
But then look at, I mean, it's an extreme example, but NXT is full every week.
Yeah,
There's no
But it's
way
a
you would want
tiny
to switch
room.
that atmosphere for AEW.
No, exactly. It's no, that's true. It's a tiny, tiny room, but it's also, how many years in has that audience been going there? And it's also like a very religious experience type audience that goes there week in and week out. Like what's AEW going to be like a year from now?
Yeah, I just, you watch Dynamite, I don't think anyone's tuning out of that broadcast
No,
saying,
it's
oh,
awesome.
wow, that crowd, uh-oh. Like
Yeah,
that,
no.
the crowd is a huge part of these shows for me. I think they sound fantastic thus far. And that's to me, it's a real big appeal that makes the product feel very hot.
Do you think we're in kind of a promo era? Just thinking about how NWA is like that, thinking about the promos last night on the show. Like, like we're in the ROH era. It wasn't necessarily defined for its promos outside of like CM Punk, like it was like guys like Davey Richards.
You're contrasting this with maybe, the more recent phenomenon of the past decade where the concentration was on work rate.
Yeah, the work rate era. Yeah. And now it's like you kind of took that physical to the most extreme.
You can argue that Punk, like, when the Pipe Bomb was like...
But he was like an exception during that era, right? Yeah. Like most of those guys were known for just like...
It's a hole from that needed to be filled. To me, it was a great opening for AEW that we have the ability to have great promos that are going to have...
They haven't showcased that outside of the main event. Like even guys like Moxley and Omega haven't really... I mean, Moxley, yes, but I think they could be doing a whole lot more, especially with a lot of people on the undercard. I mean, NWA to me has really kind of used that as sort of their the thing that really sets them apart from everybody else.
It is, but you also you want those promos, those money drawing promos to be from your key guys. So I think that's the most important part, that you're getting something like a Cody promo on this Go Home show that I think people were just raving about this promo justifiably.
Great. We go back to the phone lines now. Caller, you're on the air. What's up?
Hey, boys. Paul from New Jersey.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, first off, I have to say, way back in the day when I stumbled upon you guys, it was through a Royal Rumble 94 review, and it was John Way and Damian Abraham, and I loved the show so much that I've been a fan ever since. So always awesome to hear Damian on the show.
Oh, thank you very much. I think those review aways were some of the most fun, 4-hour experiences of my life. At the time
we just reviewed that show.
I saw
94.
And thanks to the archivist, I saw that my original review.
Our ratings were exactly the same.
Yeah. I still stand by it too.
Amazing. What's on your mind, Paul?
Yeah, you guys sitting around laughing about Bruce Hart was some of the greatest stuff in my memory. But maybe I'm in the minority here. But with NXT last night, and by the way, Braden and Davey are doing a great job. I suggest the North American. It's been awesome. But I felt like there wasn't really a lot of intensity last night. It kind of felt like paint by numbers to me, and maybe I'm in the minority that I thought it was cool watching the club take out, or the OC rather, take out Undisputed Era. But and I think this is the same thing on Raw. Through these matches were Tainora against Santana Garrett, which was good, and Scott against Dijakovic, I was kind of just waiting for someone to jump the guardrails. And I saw, Bianca Belair's attack was so brutal on SmackDown. And I know, granted, I'm probably the biggest Dana Brooke fan, and I know she's not over with a lot of people, but I thought seeing her and Carmella go after her and be like, hey, we remember what you did. And again, maybe I'm in the minority about this, but it felt very formulaic already instead of kind of being that intense attack on SmackDown. Just wanted to get your guys' opinions on that.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people were focused on this week's NXT coming off that momentum and wanting to see what happened on this Wednesday show. I think they were limited in the sense that the SmackDown crew, I believe their first show in the UK is Thursday, so I don't think they would have had access to that talent. I was even surprised that they took 3 guys that I guess don't have to be there till Friday, so you did that. It's a show that I think that over the course of the 2 hours, there is some drag. I also thought there was some drag on Dynamite as well. And that's, a 2-hour wrestling show. At times you're going to have that. But I think for this week, especially if you were looking for the Invasion follow-up, I think they were very limited with what their options could be anyway.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that I think NXT has the weird task of having to build to 2 separate pay-per-views at the very same time.
It's very tough.
So you saw a lot of build, with War Games for both the women and the men simultaneously trying to fit in this OC stuff. And, the end result at the end of the show with them trying to have Balor in there with Adam Cole attacking everybody and then trying to fit the OC in as well, it could end up being a little bit confusing. I think it presents a unique challenge for the producers of NXT to try to, simultaneously build 2 big shows on the same weekend. I really like the Shayna Baszler Dakota Kai stuff. I think whatever they're doing with Dakota Kai is really interesting.
I thought that was the best thing on the show was all that stuff, and then Rhea Ripley choosing against Dakota Kai and putting Mia Yim into the War Games match. All that stuff was great. I thought Dakota Kai looked great, and Shayna Baszler to me was as much focus as there's been on Adam Cole, I think this was like a breakout week for Shayna Baszler, who just looked tremendous, showing up on SmackDown in the role she did, the sit down with Becky, and then the match with Dakota Kai. Like, such varying facets of your performance across those 3 episodes. But to me, Shayna Baszler felt like such a big star this week.
She feels like also like someone that's more of a slam dunk for going to the main roster, or for being used on the main roster than Adam Cole. Not that there's anyone. I know, knock on wood.
Asuka felt like a slam
But
dunk.
you look at her and you look at who is ultimately the person in charge of that main roster, and you're like, of course she wouldn't be where this MMA fighter is. Like this MMA fighter who I think judging, Vince is not going to screw that up. Knock on wood.
Yeah, we'll see. We go back to the phone lines now. Caller, you're in the cafe. What's going on?
Gentlemen, good afternoon. How are you?
Oh, my goodness.
Are you aware who this is, Damian?
Oh, I know. New Jersey, but maybe Scarborough.
I was in the process of...
Are you going to be okay, Brandon?
I was in the process of negotiating with Brandon. For people who aren't aware, he is our next executive producer who has chosen Heroes of Wrestling for us to watch. And
another repeat. You guys have done that, right?
Dude, this will be our 3rd time watching and recording something for this show. And John is like not looking forward to it at all. And this guy. So I was like trying to figure out like, oh Brandon, when do you want to do recording? And I was made aware of Brandon's working hours. Like this guy works from when? Like midnight to like 10 a.m. or something like that. So what are you doing? I guess my question is, what are you doing up right now? It's like 4 p.m. in the afternoon.
Well, you're gonna laugh. Well, I don't know if you're gonna laugh. One,
you'll do that.
I had to get my car serviced. Absolutely. I had to get my car serviced, and number 2, I had to try that Popeye's chicken sandwich.
Oh, the
How is it?
Sandwich.
We don't get that up here, do we?
I don't know. I was wondering if they're going to do it on the relaunch. They didn't do it the first time around.
Okay, is it worth the hype?
I mean, it's not worth dying for, right? But
okay.
I mean, it's good. It's cool. It's an experience. You know what I mean?
I got one for you. This never came to America. But did you ever hear about when the KFC, when they had their all halal, all chicken breast cooked to order pop-up restaurant at Yonge and Bloor?
No.
It was like an experiment they did. It was like this KFC diner type cafe type thing. Oh. And it had the best chicken sandwich. It was incredible. And it was right across the street from the Vape Lounge. It was right across from Vapor Central.
Wow. I would think one just funnels people into the
Let me
other.
tell you, it was a 1-2 punch for the ages.
Which one was first, and what was?
Oh, you're definitely going to the Vape Lounge first. If not, you're going back to the sandwich place again at the end.
Yeah, I would say maybe you crossed the street a few times.
I could cross the street back and forth a few times.
So Brandon, when are you going to sit down and watch Heroes of Wrestling?
Oh, I just found it on YouTube, and I'm taking copious notes, John, just for you.
Thanks.
Wonderful.
It's going to take copious amounts of patience to get through this show, and I will be thinking of you the entire 2.5 hours it takes to watch this thing. Which I'm already saying I am not watching this. This is going to be 2 times the speed. This might be 2.5 times the speed if YouTube allows it.
This is when you should try weed for the first time.
This show's already going to put me in a coma. I don't think I need any assistance.
John, I apologize. I didn't know this was your 3rd viewing. I try to be as avant-garde as possible.
You definitely knew it was the 3rd viewing. We know you're a sadist with these guys. You just want to punish them.
It's going to be fun. I can't wait to
What else is on your mind, Brandon, quickly before I hang up on you?
That's my favorite one. When he hangs up on me, it's great. The Jericho thing. I mean, they call themselves the woke wrestling organization, but don't you guys think it's kind of hypocritical that their champion is interviewing a guy that advocates, harm, people get hurt, like journalists and stuff like that. I don't think it's cool, but I mean, maybe it's just me. I don't know.
It's not just
what do you think about that?
No, there's a lot of negativity about him interviewing Donald Trump Jr. and what, and that decision to do so. No, I think those that I think people will listen to the interview. I don't think I don't think it's going to be an interview people will be happy with.
It's hard to comment without hearing it. You know, for me personally, I don't even really know that much about like exactly what's going on politically with Donald Trump Jr. So I'm somebody who's just kind of stepping in completely cold and maybe relying on other opinions.
You know who's going to have a good podcast about this? Nate Milton's new podcast.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's going to be
No doubt,
The
no doubt.
Nubian Wrestling Alliance.
Yeah, to check this one and to check out on this episode especially because it's like something where like Brandon's saying, there's like real like vitriol towards this administration because there's real vitriol coming off this administration. And like you said, like I don't know if I could have this guy on my podcast and look at some of my friends in the eye afterwards. Like I think they would judge me for giving this guy a forum more than even I'd worry about what strangers thought.
I guess.
I mean, but say what you will about the place up north, but I mean, they try to steer away from Trump and all that stuff. I know he's in the Hall of Fame and whatnot, but you know they want to keep the both sides of their fan bases happy. So I mean, they
I suppose that it's like,
go ahead.
but it's sort of the difference of, you know, I think Jericho doing his podcast is Jericho doing the podcast, less so a representation of AEW. Now, as a champion, as you know, one of the biggest faces of the company, thank you, Brandon, for the call. You know, does he have a responsibility of maybe maintaining an image? Maybe that's debatable, but I think we've seen right now in AEW, everybody is given a great deal of autonomy to do what they do. And certainly with Jericho having this project of his, you know, develop outside of AEW, I don't think he feels, you know, any type of responsibility.
What do you think about this, Nate?
What is going on, brothers? It is great to come home
Put out the
from-
signal and he's here.
I'm like Candyman, say my name 3 times and I show up on a podcast.
What up, Nate?
What is going on, brother Damian? It's good. I came home from work and turned on the broadcast and to see my former super reviewer Raw compatriots all in one room. It made my heart
That's
swell
right.
up.
September 2012.
That's right.
Yes. Yep.
A memorable night of cannabis and
Which
cardiac incidences. And,
Paul Heyman reference this week.
Yeah, Paul Heyman referenced that too.
Nate, I know you're calling in to talk about this this subject that has been brought up several times. Where do you fall on the idea of interviewing? Let's just I hate the word controversial these days, but controversial figures, which you would certainly lump Donald Trump Jr. as. Do you disagree with the notion of just the idea of him being interviewed, or just your overall thoughts on how you would approach a similar situation?
I think it's a no-brainer. Like if somebody from the Trump administration reached out to the Kings of Sport and said, we want to put Donald Trump Jr. or Kellyanne Conway on your show, would you take this interview? Absolutely, because not only is it a chance to ask some legitimate questions, but you're drawing traffic to my show. And so I think the question is, what kind of conversation is it though? Because if it's just a fluff piece, and if it's just Jericho and Donald Trump Jr. exchanging stories from when DJT used to watch WrestleMania at the Garden or whatever, or watch Raw at the Garden or whatever, it's not a worthwhile expense for the listener. I think if you're going to have somebody like that on, and it's not just somebody from the Trump campaign or from the Trump operation, if it was somebody like a Joe Biden or a Kamala Harris, I don't think you have those type of guests on just to play nice. Like, you have to ask legitimate questions if you're the broadcaster. And so it'll be interesting to see like if that's what Jericho does. But in terms of, do you take that call? Do you take that guest? Hell yeah, because this is probably going to be one of his most listened to episodes of Talk Is Jericho, equally because of the people that love Trump, but also because of the people that hate Trump and want to find something to complain about.
Yeah, but look at Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon's still trying to live down that Trump appearance where they had Trump on the Tonight Show. Like, that's going to follow him. Like when he roughed with his hair, you know, like that's going to
Yes.
follow him to the day he dies. Like, it's just one of those things.
And that's where, you know, it's something that when you look at it, and that was, correct me, Nate, that was around 2015, I would say. That was about a year before
Yeah.
I think he had announced his candidacy, but had not been. This was pre election. So, I mean, certainly still the guy. I mean, right away he had said the whole rapist line, like that was his, declaring he was running. So I think at that point already that was certainly a red flag about the kind of campaign he was going to be running. And Jimmy Fallon is probably not somebody like I have a much different expectation of a Jimmy Fallon interview versus had John Oliver sat down with Donald Trump. And that's what I'm looking at here. I'm not tuning into Chris Jericho's show to expect him to be having politicians on and having hard-hitting debate about those issues, which then it does go to the point that if this is just there for PR for the book, it is certainly going. You are inviting that backlash when you're Chris Jericho and accepting a guest that is going to be polarizing. It's going to bring a lot of attention to this episode, but that attention is going to be both positive and negative depending on what your views of Donald Trump Jr. and this administration are. So if you're Chris Jericho, you have to understand that going in here and not be stunned by the reaction here, and knowing what people are going into this with their expectations, having not heard the interview, which none of us have.
As to does this blow back on AEW? I don't think so, because this is not the AEW podcast. This is not something that's being aired on the body of Dynamite. It's this one dude who is your champion, the youngest champion in AEW history. It's your dude, but it's his show. And so, I won't be listening just because I don't feel like it's going to reveal anything worthwhile. But I can't blame the dude for having the guy on the show because he's trying to pop a rating.
I really enjoyed your first episode, Nate. You were on last week talking about it. I thought it was a really great job with Chris and Andrew Thompson. You guys had a tremendous discussion. If you have not heard this, it is the NWA, the Nubian Wrestling Advocates, up at the Kings of Sport Patreon that you can go check out. The first episode is free. Nate is not asking me to promote this, but I'm doing it on my own because I really enjoyed the first episode.
Oh, thank you, sir. And it just warms my heart to hear John Pollock, professional broadcaster that he is, say the Nubian Wrestling Advocates. But it was a fun show, man. I think people are going to enjoy it, those that have not checked it out yet. And it's going to be something that's probably bi-weekly, given our schedules. But it's a conversation about culture, a conversation about the wrestling business and fans and the industry. And man, it's something that I think you and I guess this is going to be the show where everybody gives John and Wai kudos, because I don't think a show like this exists without kind of the tone that you and Wai have set in terms of your conversational tone about heavy topics. Like I was talking with Chris about this when we finished recording. Like the show you guys did last year, I want to say, about Crown Jewel, like that was a big deal in terms of the conversation in wrestling media. And so, without you guys doing shows like that, I don't know if we get to the NWA podcast.
We appreciate the compliments.
Thanks,
I maybe overstate it, but we appreciate it nonetheless, Nate. You're doing a great job with that, and always great when you can take some time to call in and chat with all of us.
Thank you. And Damian, I'm sure I will see you on Instagram at 2:30 in the morning one of these nights. Like, I don't talk to Damian often. Yes. But when I do, it's on Instagram at 2:30 in the morning.
When I'm dabbing it up late at night, I look forward to our reconnection.
Thanks a lot, Nate.
All right, brothers.
The ratings are not in yet, but Tony Maglio from The Wrap just tweeted out that NXT was within 9,000 total viewers of AEW last night. So we're talking neck and neck with total viewership.
Wow,
so,
that close.
Yeah, so we will be getting the official numbers momentarily once they are out, and as soon as they are, we will go through those.
That's wild.
Oh, I wanted to ask you guys, did either of you catch the Countdown show?
I love that Countdown show.
Man, that thing was awesome. So
I didn't see it yet.
So they did like a half-hour countdown on YouTube for Full Gear. And
was the narrator Liev Schreiber?
I don't know. It sounded just like the 24/7 or whoever.
That's who
HBO
did
guy.
24/7.
I mean, I don't know, but it sounded that good.
If not, it sounded like remarkably similar. And Oh, I just thought it was
all the criticisms that I personally had about maybe the lack of build for like Moxley and Omega and some of the other matches were totally solved with this Countdown show, because they spent ample time on not just that match, of course, the main event, but also the Bucks versus Santana and Ortiz.
Oh, man, the promos from Santana and Ortiz.
Ortiz was awesome.
It's so amazing that they finally are in a place that they're going to be able to get the attention, because they've just been like blowing up on the underground for so long.
I think Impact did a really great job with them.
I think so too.
Like, I look at, for Impact, like, to me, they were really a product of the Scott D'Amore, Don Callis era, and they saw them as like a main event tag team, and I think they benefited greatly from these past 2 years in Impact.
It was also them before that, like showing up and taking on everyone that 1 year at WrestleMania, like showing up at every single event and just being like, we'll wrestle whoever. I think they just kind of like had that kind of like, they're just part of this new era of guys that just know what it takes to make people like respond to you in wrestling and just do it.
Man, they had some of the most graphic footage of John Moxley's staph infection that was gruesome to see. It was
gruesome,
disgusting.
but told you exactly how serious this thing was, right? And as much as we
this guy, I'm not a medical professional, but it looked like he had no business finishing that G1.
Hell no, absolutely not. But as much as we liked it, this is the same complaint we have about a lot of WWE Network programming that doesn't make its way onto the main programming. Like, how good would some of this stuff have been on the actual body of the show itself? Instead, I'm sure on YouTube it'll do decently well, but not probably as good as it will do on TNT. So I do recommend checking that out. Let's go to one more phone call before we get to the ratings here, and that's the man himself, Mr. Tony K. Anything to say about the show last night?
I'm delighted you guys liked it again. It makes it all worthwhile to hear you guys enjoy it.
Such a busy week for you coming up in Baltimore, taking your weekly stop here on the Café Hangout. Tony K.
I know, yeah, and I'm pissed off to hear about NXT being so close to us in the ratings, but I'll deal with that when they all come out. I'll deal with it when it comes. I just wanted to kind of ask you about something you were talking about earlier on, about like kind of getting fans in, getting new fans interested in the show, and how like over the last while there seems to be such a prevalent kind of culture around bringing older guys back and older ideas back, but there's one idea that hasn't come back that was so big back like in the heyday, which is like factions on the main roster. And like, do you think there's anything behind factions not being such a prevalent thing on the main roster? Like, we see them on NXT and now in AEW, but main roster WWE, we don't really get factions as much.
Yeah, I think it's just more like a fundamental decision not to go that way. I mean, in an ideal scenario, a faction, what it can do, especially when you have two of them, it creates so many spin-off matches and pairings you can do. But like the Inner Circle, to me, it's a great. It was like the Evolution model, the Horseman model. It was like you have your solid leader, and then you have your rising star. Sammy. Look at how much more over Sammy Guevara and Jake Hager are just a month into the Inner Circle, and that's what you want to do. It's your established talent and lifting up the ones around you, and everyone gets over. And you don't overcrowd the group either. You don't go the NWO route where the idea is put a t-shirt and that'll get anyone over, and you water down the concept. You keep it to a manageable number. And I always feel that, you group guys together, it can always be a great way to take inexperienced talent and whether it's a tag team, whether it's a faction, it can be very beneficial for younger talent. So I don't have an answer for you about why it's not explored more on the main roster, because I think it can be a great tool when it comes for several functions.
I love it in Japan, where it's like everyone's in New Japan's in some sort of stable, and it just makes it more, like you can have shades of gray if you have stables, because then you can explain why aren't all the other baby faces coming out and helping this baby face in trouble? Like, they're not in the same stable. Like, they have nothing invested in helping this person out. Like, I just think, stables and factions make sense. But I think, to me, it's just the problem with presenting it. Because you bring anyone to a live wrestling event, there's nothing wrong with the in-ring product. Like, people experiencing it live, just like, even my kids, like, they freaked out going live. It's just the way it's presented to them on TV. It's just something that's not responding with younger people, it just seems to me, at least.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that it, for Tony, Mr. Khan?
Yeah, that's it. Thanks very much for taking the call, guys, and great to see you on the show, Damian. Love the wrestlers.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Appreciate the call.
I have an itchy nose, and I forgot we were on web camera, so it totally looked like I picked my nose there. I apologize, everyone.
We got some
No, I wasn't actually going to pick my nose. I had like a literally itchy thing. I wasn't just trying to cover for picking my nose way.
We appreciate transparency
Thanks for blowing up
at
my
all
spot.
corners.
Appreciate it.
Let's just look at this card, the full card now for Full Gear. At least these are the matches that have been officially announced. Jericho Cody for the AEW title if Cody loses. He will never challenge for the AEW title again. John Moxley, Kenny Omega, non-sanctioned lights out match. Young Bucks against Santana and Ortiz. Hangman Page versus Pac. Riho versus Emi Sakura for the AEW women's title. Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky against the Lucha Brothers and Private Party for the tag titles. Joey Janela versus Sean Spears has been officially added. And on the pre-show, B. Priestley versus Dr. Britt Baker. What do you think about this card? Is it enough to come over to John Pollock's house on Saturday night for?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like, it's been all built to logically too. And like it's something where, I just wonder if the Lucha Brothers, I guess maybe they're going to break them out eventually, but I just wonder if them not being broken out into something greater yet,
I think that'll come. They're probably here for quite a while, and you might as well kind of ride them out as a tag team before you separate them into singles, because they're certainly adaptable either way.
Their name dropped on the new West Side Gun record that just dropped.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, shouts out to the Lucha Brothers.
All right.
And I saw he was hanging out with them a couple weeks ago.
How much have you mentally backtracked on the idea of coming over on Saturday since I invited you?
Oh, I'm really excited. I'm going to bring my dab pen. I'm going to
Are you really coming?
Oh, yeah. Got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. How much have you backtracked on the offer?
Zero. Absolutely zero.
It's like
I feel when you initially responded, it was 100, and I felt, okay, I gave you 15 minutes, and now it's like, okay.
No, I like once.
How do I get out of this?
Once I have no responsibilities.
Maybe we'll go to the Thai place before.
We could go to the Thai place.
We should definitely.
Is it open at that time?
On Saturday?
I don't know.
I'm down.
We could also order pizza.
We could do
and
that.
wings.
We could do that too.
Let's just go over our menu for Saturday night. Let us just continue that.
We can do that, but I also wanted to ask Damian, reception to the wrestlers since we've last spoke to you on the show.
It's
internationally. How
it's wild. Like I got off stage in New Zealand on the last night of tour.
Yeah.
Went back to the hotel room, literally turned on the TV, and the wrestlers was on.
Amazing.
It's really.
Did you sit down and watch yourself for an hour?
I did, masturbated a little bit and like just really got into it.
I don't want to know which episode.
No.
The Congo.
They just started airing it in Indonesia. They translated it. Now they're airing it in Indonesia.
So your voice is translated into like a different language or
subtitled?
I think it's subtitled. Yeah.
Oh,
it's like it'd be amazing if there was someone like
pretty damn
I've got like a voice like this over there. It's like, wow, they really gave him a great deep voice. But no, it's like it's so weird to have this show go all over the place and to meet people and it just once again speaks to wrestling as this kind of universal thing. Like I remember pitching it to Vice and I'm like, you could literally just put this show on anywhere in the world and people will respond because it's pro wrestling. And now, it's happening. It's still, and once again, I keep saying it, but it's from hanging out with you guys, meeting Chris. Chris was like a translator on a bunch of the episodes. Like,
oh, you put the work in.
Wow. I just got to be a fan.
Yeah. I suppose the natural question is, what does this mean for season 2?
Still up in the air. Still up in the air. I got, I still have every day there's something that happens in wrestling. Like I think the last 2 weeks in wrestling have been ripe for greater discussion.
What would be the topics that come to mind instantly if Viceland called you up and said, hey, give us 3-4 top line ideas of what you have for season 2? What would interest you?
Oh, I still think going to England, covering, the kind of like rebuilding of the indie wrestling scene in England. Obviously, Progress is now part of WWE, but I think even that's part of the story. Like WWE having to react to the fact that they rebuilt this.
Oh, you'd have to get your experts from the British wrestling experience.
I would definitely reach into the fam for that. I think there's I'd love to do something about custom videos in wrestling, custom matches. I'd love to do something about representation in wrestling, be it there's just so many issues that are being brought up constantly. Like it is amazing how progressive wrestling is, and then at the same time how far behind seemingly these companies are in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. We still await the TV ratings from last night.
And just give me 1 second.
These numbers, if I've seen some of these on Twitter, and if they are indeed true, this will be really damn interesting, Damian.
Oh, I'm excited to be here for this event. Oh, wow. It's here for the dates.
This is the nerdiest aspect.
Dude.
Okay, I got him here. So,
I love this aspect of it because this is what we've all been waiting for.
Oh, I know. It makes Thursdays like, man, like almost the kind of like, you know, control center for like how wrestling, our interest in wrestling.
Yeah.
All right, you got it, John?
It's not loading.
Okay.
This is the hardcore wrestling fans
anticlimactic.
Monday night now.
How anticlimactic.
Can you open it?
Oh shit.
I think their site crashed.
Oh god, yeah, I wouldn't doubt
Just some
that.
people-
Okay, I'm in. Okay. So AEW was 8th for the night among people 18 to 49. They did 822,000 viewers and a 0.35 among 18 to 49. NXT was 12th for the night. They did 813,000 viewers. So as Tony Maglio said, 9,000 difference, 0.30 in people 18 to 49.
We have a fight. We have a fight, everybody.
Yeah.
That's like neck and neck. That's essentially like even, honestly. And what a climb up from NXT. I mean, and AEW did better than last week too. So I mean, this means more people are watching wrestling on a Wednesday.
Yeah. It's still,
It's 1.6 million people watching these two shows.
yeah. And
You got a breakdown or
I will in a second.
Okay.
Let me just
Sorry,
get this
Damian.
out.
no, it's still like it hasn't dropped off. Like it's not like a bunch of people that got interested and then were like, nah, it's still not what I'm looking for. Like it's obviously retaining its audience to a certain extent. It's exciting now.
Now, I mean, okay, so last week AEW Dynamite did 759,000. The week prior they did 963,000. So this number for AEW rests somewhere in between.
So
Big gain for NXT.
So AEW won among people 18 to 49, males and females 18 to 49, people 18 to 34. NXT edged them out in females 12 to 34. Among males,
Look at the 18 to 49 for both shows though. 18 to 49 for NXT is 0.35, and for AEW was 0.35. For NXT,
0.30.
0.30, which isn't that a
It was a much bigger gap among males 12 to 34. That was 0.27 to a 0.16.
Okay.
Then we go on over here, fairly close among people 25 to 54. The 50 plus, this has been the demo that NXT has dominated, and they won it again here, 0.34 to 0.28. But yeah, certainly I think you have to credit the Invasion as adding a lot of interest to NXT this week, and how close this was.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at the AEW number, this was the week that you have. You don't have the excuses like you had NBA, and that was it this week. And this was kind of where you see things, kind of a fair representation of the audiences this week without anything significant sporting wise going against them.
Well, it's like why you've got like millions of people tuning in on Monday nights and Friday nights. Like you don't think you should tell them that you also have wrestling on Wednesday nights as well? Like it just seems like it's such a no-brainer. Like you should be introducing your bigger audiences to these other properties that you have out there, and it took an emergency for them to finally do it. I know you're saying that they were going to be doing it anyway eventually, but why did it take this long? Like this seems like marketing 101. Like you do the ECW invasion back in the day because it's going to expose more people to ECW. Like Vince knew that back then. It's amazing he doesn't see it now.
What this is going to be interesting is this 3 weeks building up the Survivor Series where you're going to have, whether you have bodies from Raw and SmackDown appearing on NXT, or even just the tease of them, if that correlates into more competitive numbers on Wednesday night, I think that does point you in the direction of doing this beyond Survivor Series. And that may not be the best idea long term, but if it's showcased, like this was the most competitive week we have seen, and I think you have to attribute a lot of that to the programming on Friday and Monday leading into this, and the interest of who would show up, and NXT being prominently featured on SmackDown and Raw. That this kind of pushes you towards more of that integration.
And looking cool. Like they were featured strong in it too.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just like a bumper at the bottom of the screen.
No, they weren't there to just be punching bags on either show. Especially it's SmackDown. Like they were the stars of that show.
Yeah.
Everything was built around them. So no, I think you have to look at that as a positive. Wade, did you expect numbers to be higher this week for either program?
Not really. I mean, I expected both to bounce back this week, but I certainly didn't see NXT climbing as high as they did. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see how they carry on this momentum. I'm excited to see how AEW responds, if they have a response. And I'm excited to see further breakdown of these numbers, because from what I can see right now, just on a surface level, they are certainly closer than in the past. But NXT did edge out AEW in terms of females 12 to 34, and also the 50 plus. So you wonder, like, does that have to do with maybe a great emphasis on the women's division in NXT playing a part? What are these factors, and how do they capitalize on it?
And just to compare last week, and again, this was against Game 7 of the World Series, AEW did 759, NXT did 580, and then going back 2 weeks ago, AEW did 963 and NXT did 698. So AEW not able to get back to the level they were 2 weeks ago either. So this would be the lowest number that AEW has done if you throw out last week's number against the World Series.
Yes.
All right. Well, that is the climax of the show.
Was
that exciting?
That was a
Damian?
big build. I was excited. Like I can't believe we got a war. We got a war going on.
It's a war outside.
Just the cable insanity. Well, Damian, I look forward to seeing you on Saturday night. Unless I get a Saturday afternoon text.
I'll be there with dabs on, John.
Okay. Well,
tell us about your upcoming podcast.
Yeah, I've got Turned Out a Punk. I've got some wrestlers coming up. I've got an aforementioned interview coming up. With
Jimmy Jacobs,
David Starr,
yes.
Jim Smallman.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of wrestlers and people involved in wrestling kind of coming up in the pipeline, as well as a bunch of random punk people.
And that's Turned Out a Punk, everybody.
Turned Out a Punk, yeah. There's going to be constantly wrestling content, no matter what my brother tells me he wants on my podcast.
Looking forward to it. Well, all those interviews sound very intriguing.
I think you're going to like them. I don't know about the rest of my audience, but I think they're for John.
You can go check out Damian on Jimmy Jacobs' podcast. See him dive deep into the whole existential...
A lot of drug talk.
Okay.
A little bit of drug talk. I tell the whole smoking DMT and meeting Johnny Depp story.
Well, that's you? You met Johnny Depp smoking DMT?
I've never told you the story?
No, okay. I'll have to
Off
listen.
air.
Oh,
I'll have to listen to the show.
That's it, everybody. Wayne and I will be back Friday night with Rewind to SmackDown. PostWrestlingCafe.com. Go check that out. And that is it. Goodbye.